Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that we finally make it. I was looking forward to this conversation.
Back together again.
Back together again. It's been a few years, We worked together back, when was it? 2020, 2021. I found you. I can't remember how. I think it's probably from your beautiful LinkedIn organic post. You got me hooked,
Probably.
and
Yeah, I wonder. Be
I
interested to go
wonder.
back into our DMs on LinkedIn and see what
That's
the
it.
first initial message was. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, it's crazy that much time has passed. It doesn't feel that long ago.
No.
And we're still working with your old company. So even
Oh,
after all
that's
that
cool.
time.
Very
So
cool. Tension. Good
retention's
one.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Good seg.
They're a good client. Yeah.
Good segue on the first question I wanted to open up with. By the way, I'm not even doing a formal introduction because we all know you're the co-founder of Omni Lab, and we'll put all the bio and the links in the video for people to reach out to you if they want to. But I want to jump right into it if that's okay with you. Actually, going back a few years when we were working together, we were really focused on net new acquisition at the time. Most SaaS brands were, and they were actually investing a lot. It was the good years. Now it's a bit more restricted in terms of budget, of course. The conditions, the economical conditions are the way they are. More focus on churn, retention plays, all of that stuff. What do you hear from the clients you work with? Like right now, what's kind of the buzz in terms of their core focus in terms of go to market right now? What's top of mind?
Well, taking a step back, as you alluded to it earlier, just the economic environment, I think it's important to kind of lay the groundwork there. And I think everyone generally knows this and feels it, probably even at a personal level. But I mean, the federal funds rate has dramatically increased when you look at 2021 versus 2025 environment. And so to your point about budgets, like clearly budgets are more restricted because VCs and LPs and family funds just simply haven't been able to raise as much capital to their funds because those same people that are investing in those VCs are now finding more attractive investments like money market
Mm-hmm.
funds or treasury funds or the things like that because interest
Mm-hmm.
rates are a lot higher than they were
Yep.
before versus in 2021, everyone is pouring money into venture capital because the returns were there. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important to kind of lay the groundwork there. And that's why we saw, of course, a lot more spend, sometimes honestly in inefficient ways. The growth at all costs motion was heavy in swing around that time. And so it was, let's just spend all we can to get as many customers as we can because companies could afford it a little bit more so than they can today. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
today it's become the efficiency game and we're all working with less people on our teams and less budget and all sorts of things. And so I think that's the context there on everything. What's strange about it is that for us, I mean, churn and retention, I'm sure are important. And maybe we're just not, as part of those conversations as much. But the reality is everyone's still focused on net new acquisition. And so everyone still wants the
Yeah.
same thing. They've all still raised money, whether they're an AI-based platform or some other, and they still need growth. They still need growth. They need new
Right.
customers. They need just need new clients. And so we still see the same types of behaviors. The only difference now is that we have to find ways to, as everyone says, do more with less and,
Right.
find ways to use the budget more efficiently on channels that are potentially cheaper than others that might be more expensive. And so I think that's what's really changed, over the course of the last, few years. And of course, that makes it a lot harder to hit the goals. And then you've got all the different SaaS brands that have sprung up too, when you start looking at the landscape of all these different SaaS brands that have popped out of nowhere. Because you've got vibe coding in full swing. You've got people launching SaaS apps a lot easier. There's just not as much a moat around product as there once was. And so now that's putting a lot of pressure on, brand and marketing teams and others to make sure that they get attention to their brands and a sea of just more and more apps coming into the same types of product categories.
That's interesting. So more battling around getting attention in a sea of brands out there where it's tough to cut through the noise, right?
Oh yeah, it is. And I mean, then you got LinkedIn. There was an article actually, I think it was Inc. or Forbes or something like that. But there's an article that was talking about just the AI slop of LinkedIn. And, LinkedIn, of course, has changed dramatically just as a channel. Everyone knows LinkedIn that's in B2B. And so there's been a lot of AI comments, just a lot of AI generated content, and a lot of things that honestly, are maybe driving some level of engagement, but honestly, really eroding some of the value of the channel itself.
Yeah.
And so that means that it's harder for, you can have, again, the same person that wrote a text-based post back in 2022, 2021. I mean, now you can write 1,000 of them at scale and schedule them all automatically and never look at your LinkedIn profile. And so all it means is that the inventory slots for organic posts or paid, it's just going to get a lot more competitive to get in front of the right audience. And then you've got also it's moved more towards an interest graph as well. And so a lot of people have seen their reach decline, but engagement increase in some cases because LinkedIn's trying to prioritize content that not just your network should see, but that someone that wants to read about that topic should see. And so I think that's made it a lot more difficult.
Yeah. So digital reputation is really important to influence LLM powered discovery in some ways, right? And buyer trust. So do you think there's a lot of noise about this on LinkedIn. Brand is becoming the new moat in many ways, right? In that new context, increasingly more important than it used to be. How, as an agency, do you build a business case for brand investment versus performance? Because you're more leaning towards performance as an agency, if I'm not mistaken, but correct me if I'm wrong. How do you make the business case to invest in brand in that context that you just talked about?
Right. We do both. I mean, I think ultimately it comes down to aligning with the mindset of how they want to measure paid media would be one. And then two, what infrastructure they already have existing to measure it.
Right.
And so I think that conversation needs to happen before you even spend $1. And that's true of in-house teams or agencies. That's not a agency specific type of thing. I mean, even if you're an in-house marketer coming in, working for a new CMO, I mean, I think the first question when you're holding, $50,000, $100,000 paid media budget or whatever it is, those two questions. And there has to be alignment around those things. And so to make it really simple, a lot of people have traditionally for many years been very addicted to UTM appended contacts in a CRM. And so that's always been the primary way to judge whether a campaign or a channel is working or not, which means that's predominantly a performance marketing motion, because what we're saying is I'm going to create an ad, I'm going to publish that ad, and I'm going to try to get clicks to that ad. And those clicks are then going to pass through from my website using UTM parameters to a CRM, and then I will be able to gauge the results of that campaign. And so I think that we're so addicted to it because it's great data. It gives us so much information on the ad, the format, the campaign, I mean, everything, right? And you're never going to get that level of detail with tools or incrementality tests or lift tests. I mean, those things are broader indicators for judging the success of a campaign. And so I think that, if we can get alignment around those two questions that I mentioned a second ago, then I think we can then move to the next step, where we decide how we divide up the budget between brand and demand gen. And so, for us then it's a question of, okay, well, now that we know we've got some of the infrastructure, we've agreed on some of the indicators. And oh, by the way, it's not like it's just these or those, right? I mean, there's going to be indicators you're going to look at for, performance marketing campaigns like MQLs, SQLs, pipeline, number of opportunities, cost per opportunity. Those will be your just typical standard issue things you'll look at for a capture channel like Bing or Google or retargeting campaign. And then for, brand campaigns, we're not going to be looking or measuring those types of metrics from a channel perspective in most cases. Those you're going to say, all right, are we seeing that brand traffic is increasing? What is our share of search as it relates to other competitors? What is the overall blended increase in high intent expressions of interest across all sources, not just paid? Right. What does qualitative data say from call recording software or from the website directly? And so I think all those indicators can kind of help build a picture from a leading indicator perspective. And actually, who was it? It was John Miller, I think it was, who was ex-Marketo, who actually literally just had a post 2 days ago about this exact thing. And he's like, leading indicators are still incredibly important. And this obsession that we've all had for the last, seems like 5+ years around revenue and pipeline are the only things that matter has honestly damaged marketing teams more than it's helped them, because most SaaS brands have long sales cycles, 30, 60, 90, sometimes 180 days. So you're just not going to get the amount of data points with high ACV types of clients and long sales cycles to be able to put that into a spreadsheet and then find a predictable way to grow it. You're going to have to use leading indicators of engagement, click-through rate, search traffic from brand terms,
Hmm.
overall share of search, which is a much longer term indicator, looking at lift, for example. So having a control group that's seen LinkedIn ads, or sorry, that hasn't seen LinkedIn ads, and then one that has, and then look at the overall incremental lift when people are actually exposed to LinkedIn ads, things like that. And so anyway, without making it too complicated, we just try to make sure that there's alignment around how we're going to measure different channels or different campaigns. And I think once we can get there, then now we can have an interesting conversation on how we split that up. So I'll stop myself there for a second, but those are
That's
some
interesting.
thoughts.
So do you go as far for brands, specifically for the brand campaigns? Do you go as far as recommending some or using some tools like My Telescope or
Mhm.
for share of search and things of that nature? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Ahrefs actually has a cool thing as well that you can do.
Mm.
It's their brand radar. You can look at all
Yes.
sorts of things related to share of search. You can also look at how you're appearing in AI overviews as well on Google, which is really interesting.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's a number of ways and tons of tools out there. Yeah, My Telescope's one. There's plenty out there. I mean, there's Brand24 for social mentions, which would be another tool to consider. So in people that are mentioning your brand in social posts or anywhere on the
Hmm.
web, and tracking that activity and seeing how it's performing over time. So, I think it's less an issue of finding the data. It's more the narrative of how that connects back to the things that the business cares about. And I think that we just need to be really conscious that certain campaigns are going to have incremental impacts in the short term because there's always going to be some level of in-market buyers when you're launching any type of campaign.
Yeah.
And so we just need to look at those metrics, for the right types of campaigns so that we're not making,
Hmm.
reactionary decisions on this isn't working or this isn't working.
And it's a long game, right? You play the long game with brand. It's a nurture, it's an always on type of play. And you see
You know,
the trending over time will give you a good indication of, and the impact on your performance type of campaigns as well will be directly related, right?
the only thing I'd slightly disagree with that on is really interesting. We worked with a Series B B2B SaaS brand that did a lot of meta ads targeting, and they had a really great brand marketing campaign, like full actors on set, like what you would kind of typically think about for a brand marketing campaign.
Hmm.
Not heavy direct response, no big CTAs, no offer, no discount this or that. I mean, nothing
Hmm.
like that. Just pure brand marketing about the narrative, the problem, and how they solve it. Right? That's it. It was one of their best performing ads from a performance marketing perspective for short term results, which is so interesting because you would typically always say, well, brand marketing is a long term thing. We're marketing to out of market buyers and it's going to take a long time to see results. But, you know, and this is just one brand, by the way, that has seen better performance from a capture perspective from their brand campaign, which is just so interesting. And it makes sense a little bit why, right? Because even in a world where you've got a prospecting audience, a cold audience on Meta or LinkedIn or whatever the channel, there's always going to be people that are in market that have that problem. And so
True.
when they see that brand ad and they resonate with the problem and the solution ultimately that it solves, well, there's likely going to be interest and they might take that next step. Meanwhile, the vast majority of people are not going to take action on that. They're not ready. They don't have a problem today. This was for a company that was doing inventory and order management for e-com brands. And
Hmm.
so certain e-com brands may be at a point when they don't have inventory issues right now. They don't have difficulty tracking because they're too small. And
Right.
so, but when they do hit those problems, the brand is likely going to be thought of as number one, number two, number three in the list because hopefully this brand has formed really strong memories in the brains of these people that we're targeting so that when they do finally have the problem, they reach out to that brand.
Right. So
So
you're saying, in other words, that brand campaign can become the capture campaign
yeah,
for
in
that
some case, I think
specific
it's
in market.
both. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that this whole line of like, brand and demand and, deal acceleration campaigns. And I mean, I think the buckets serve as frameworks and it's easy to wrap our heads around like this is that and this is this and this is how we're going to measure it. I think it is
Yeah.
helpful. But like the reality is like it's not that simple. I mean, it's
It's
not
not clear cut
binary
like
like
that.
that. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no way. I don't know of anyone that knows how to do this, but I'm not sure. I mean, I guess you could say let's exclude all intent, signal-based audiences and retargeting. And we'll just call that audience people that have never heard of us before, which is traditionally
Yeah.
what you do in paid media. But there's still no guarantees that those people have never heard of you before. You're just using data that you can actually access to create audiences like that.
Hmm.
And so there's still going to be plenty of people on any channel that have been exposed to your brand. Maybe like maybe you, Christian, maybe you told me about a product the other day. And you said,
Mhm.
hey, Jonathan, you should check out this really cool product for OmniLab. That certainly is not going to come up in anything related to, intent or signal-based tool or anything like that until maybe I do some activity online.
That's
And
it.
so that means that now I've got that in my head, that brand that's now circling around there. And so when I'm good and ready, I might actually reach out. And so just
Mhm.
important to kind of have some separation between these things from a framework perspective, but realize that there's way more overlap, between brand campaigns and performance marketing campaigns. They can work on either side. So,
Yeah, agree. Agree. That's a very good point. So,
yeah.
what's your budget split that you normally recommend to a growth SaaS brand between brand and performance type of campaign?
Yeah. I guess hopefully the answer to this is always yes, but the question would always be, when you're thinking about search channels like Bing and Google that still for right now are still pretty good for high intent types of searches.
Hmm.
The question is there demand for your thing right now? And do people
Yeah.
know how to search for it?
Yeah.
So those would be the first two questions. I mean, if there's demand and people know how to search for it, well, that means that Google or Bing or a searchlight channel like that could potentially work pretty well. If the answers are no to that there's either not demand or one of the other, people don't really know how to search for this thing. Like there's not a really well-defined category, or maybe you're breaking off a little bit from the category, or you're twisting the category a bit to have something a little bit more nuanced than what the traditional category is known for.
Hmm.
Then those things make it a lot more difficult to run what I would call like a traditional capture type of play where you're, running the typical good old fashioned performance marketing playbook. And so that means that in that case, you would actually have quite a bit more percentage of budget dedicated towards what most people would call brand marketing. That's not to say that you couldn't do some type of offer based lead gen retargeting style campaign on a social channel, but you and I both know that the intent on those channels is way different than someone coming to Google. I mean, you come to LinkedIn not to evaluate software. You go to LinkedIn to learn something new, connect with
Yep.
people online. Maybe you're
I
growing your
discover.
personal. Yeah, exactly. You're growing your personal brand. You're doing all sorts of things. And yeah, sure, you may
Mm.
see an ad or an organic post or something that catches your attention
Yep.
because there's a problem there. And that's, of course, why, you can still capture some demand on LinkedIn. But the intention or the reason you came to that channel was not to convert.
No.
And so I think there's no right or wrong answer with the percentages. I mean,
Yep.
there's all sorts of things. I mean, LinkedIn, B2B Institute will say something like 50-50 to 60-40, which
Mm.
is just kind of, in my opinion, a little bit of a shooting from the hip answer. It ultimately really comes down to, the growth stage of the company. The questions before I ask, is there existing demand right now? Are people searching for it? Do they know how to search for it? And if those answers are true, then you might have, say, a 50% of your budget minimum towards capture,
Yeah.
depending on the amount of search volume, the cost of capturing that. And then you might have the other 50% dedicated to campaigns where you're not necessarily asking someone to do a specific action, and you measure
Yeah.
those campaigns differently. So that's what I'd
Right.
say off the cuff, but ultimately there's just so many little nuances to it. And I don't think I've talked to tons of CMOs about this, and no one has a black and white answer. It always seems
No.
to be a little bit of shooting from the hip, a little bit of an arbitrary pull,
Mm.
and trying to do the best they can to make sure that they're capturing existing demand out there in the market. And once they feel like they're doing that, they feel like they can allocate more and more budget towards brand marketing activities because they've saturated a channel for as much as they can capture from it. Because we all know
Yeah.
there's diminishing returns.
Right. It's to find that optimal investment point
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you have the
totally.
right balance. But on
100%.
LinkedIn, more specifically, when you're asked, how's my LinkedIn campaign performing? Do you then look at a set list of accounts that you're going after for the specific client, the reach you've had with them, the engagement, and kind of the Fibbler kind of type of matrix?
Yeah, I mean, I will say people need to be very careful with tools like Fibbler and even doing that analysis because it's not causal. I mean, it's even not
Mm.
really correlated. All we're doing there is we're saying, Christian, from, let's say you work
Company
for
X.
Apple, right?
Right.
Someone at Apple saw one impression on LinkedIn and then within X time period converted into pipeline or revenue.
Right.
And so I think that it's
You
good
can
for
grab a lot
directional.
of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's good for a directional indicator to
Yeah.
get some data because we know LinkedIn's a pretty passive channel, but I would be very careful with tools like that. And you can, of course, do this in spreadsheets too, just by pulling LinkedIn's API.
True.
But anyway, back to your question,
Yeah.
as it relates to like how we measure when someone says like, is it working or not? Yeah. I mean, the first things first is like, from a performance marketing perspective within, direct response performance marketing campaigns, like retargeting campaigns or incentivized demo campaigns,
Hmm.
are we getting some of the right quality leads that we're looking for? And so
Hmm.
that's always step one, because that's what most people care about. And it's what most people are getting measured on. Most marketers are getting measured on. So I think first things first, like let's address that. There's usually never going to be a lot of data points, even in brands spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars from a high intent perspective. Those motions never scale well on LinkedIn. So then you start to look at other metrics like you just mentioned. So if it's, again, depending on the objective, right? If it's a website visits campaign, potentially on LinkedIn, if we're talking about that, or Meta, then we're looking at click-through rate, engagement rate. We're looking
Hmm.
at amount of traffic to the page, et cetera. We're looking at which ads, which messages are resonating more than others, if there's enough data to support it. In brand awareness campaigns, we're purely looking at delivery, audience penetration, frequency. And so ideally in LinkedIn, usually you're not going to be able to hit more than 40 to 50% of the total audience size, even with all the budget in the world, just because not everyone's active on LinkedIn in a 30-day period. And some people aren't active at all. And so
Hmm.
despite everyone loving LinkedIn, I mean, most of the audience is not going to be active in
Hmm.
that period. Again, there's some flex there based on the audience. Marketers, HR, IT, et cetera, are going to be a little bit
Hmm.
different. But those are some of the metrics that we look at for your typical, brand campaigns just within LinkedIn in terms of in-platform metrics. And then outside of that, it would be taking a look at other things like share of search and brand traffic and overall incremental increases in high intent expressions of interest. And so as we see that those things are starting to trend in the direction our way, then we can start to create a narrative around that to say, okay, well, we're starting to see some incremental increases overall, in addition to some direct response conversions that are coming from the channel. This gives us good confidence that the channel's working. We're also hearing people mention us, whether it be through the website forms or whether it be through call recording software. These are good signs. So
Very good. And you were actually working on, I'm not sure if you've published it yet. I may have missed it, but like some sort of LinkedIn deep dive guide. And you ask your audience on LinkedIn, what are the brands that are killing it on LinkedIn? Any brands that you currently like, what the way they are doing, playing the game on LinkedIn organically, as well as, or people at those companies as well, I should mention, not just the brand, of course, from an organic perspective and paid perspective, which one stands out to you?
I mean, I think we all know as marketers, the ones that come to mind that have big budgets and are doing a lot of things, the Hockey Stacks and Dream Datas of the world, the Clays of the world, brands like that. And, there's clearly others, smaller brands like Cocoon in the HR space, which is very interesting. Perspective, which is
Yeah.
a agency funnel tool. So there's a lot of different brands out there. I mean, I think that you can take so much inspiration even from a brand that's not related at all to your industry or audience and learn from what they're doing, because it's really the same types of fundamentals across the board. And I think what's happening with these brands, or at least what we see is, and this is brands that we work with and also brands that we get inspiration from,
Hmm.
most are developing really deep personal relationships directly with their audience. They're not just hiding behind a corporate logo. They're getting out there in the community. They're speaking at webinars, events, they're on guest podcasts. They're talking in the comments sections. They're posting themselves, at
Yeah.
least from a LinkedIn perspective. And all these things create for a much more personal relationship. And, we're all human at the end of the day. I mean, we all
Yeah.
want to like the brands that we work with, like the people that we're talking with. And so the more that someone likes you and knows who you are, and maybe even some personal details about even your life, right? Not everything needs to be
Yeah.
corporate and business related. I think mixing a little bit of, personal stuff is okay from time to time, and everyone's going to have their line of how deep you want to get into that world.
Yeah.
But I think that's what the brands are doing really well. I mean, Clay, of course, everyone knows about their creator program, or most people do.
Yeah.
And of course, it plays in really well to everything they do, but they've essentially made millionaires out of tons of email marketers. Now, of
Yeah.
course, branded as GTM engineers, which
That's it.
is pretty hilarious
Yeah,
how
it is.
that's taken off, because really at the end of the day, they're just email marketers with, let's call it signal data and a little more automation than maybe they had
Uh-huh.
before. And now we've got a new name for them, which is fine. I think it's good. And it's just very interesting how these things, play and evolve. But anyway, Clay's done a great job because, of course, they've said, hey, any creator that starts promoting and talking about what they're doing with Clay, all the workflows and all the things they're doing, et cetera, we'll promote that with our own dollars. We'll get that into channel, and they're promoting that via thought leader ads. And so they're not only getting more impressions on Clay, but also people that are talking about Clay that aren't necessarily Clay associated,
Clear associate. Yeah.
meaning like directly working for the company.
Yeah.
And so it's a perfect influencer program that is, helping out clearly the person that runs the Clay agency and obviously Clay itself, because they make money off of, I still believe, seats or licenses or data usage or something. So
That's it. A mix of all of that. Data usage, credit usage. They go fast, those credits on Clay.
yeah,
Can
yeah,
run out of them very fast to my own detriment. I spent a
yeah,
few too many recently. But this type of program requires a lot of, you as an agency, it's your playground. I mean, you can run thought leader ads, and this can become your only sole play, on LinkedIn.
sure.
But it's tough to orchestrate, right? For any small brands, these guys have bandwidth and they have like this movement. I would call it more of a movement than anything else, right? They created this new
Yeah,
role out there. And there's a self-interest also for the individuals, a creator, beyond just like, hey, you're a partner of that brand, which
Ryan.
we see often, right? For B2B marketers to be called in by a brand and be an influencer and be a partner and being paid for each post. But that the Clay playbook is going way beyond that, I think. And it's very interesting to see how this can become like a new way of doing, because they mix community with content creation and all that. It's really powerful. Do you find commonalities amongst, let's say, outside of the outliers like Clay? I would say they are an outlier to some degree. Do you
Agreed.
find commonalities to some of the other brands that don't have like a community like that, or they don't have a brand creator program necessarily, which every brand should have one, but let's say you don't have one, you're more traditional type of SaaS brand. What would you say are the key plays that they deploy on LinkedIn?
I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. Clay's a complete outlier. I mean, they're massive and they've achieved an immense amount of success and still, are, as far as I know, just skyrocketing in terms of growth right now. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think for most SaaS brands that maybe, don't have that pull or are really redefining the category a bit, like
Mm-hmm.
Clay is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately it comes down to, do you have a founder or, an SME, subject matter expert at the
Yeah.
company that
Yeah.
really understands the customer, that has a unique point of view that ties back to a degree to the narrative of the company, that can start discussing those things in a public forum like LinkedIn, which, by the way, could be any channel. It doesn't have to be LinkedIn,
True.
but LinkedIn, of course, is known as the B2B channel.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with those things, and it literally could be one person at your entire company. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, that's how OmniLab started. And we're not a SaaS brand, we're an agency, but the same rules apply. And
True.
so in the
You're a good
beginning, it
example
was,
of that.
yeah, in the beginning, it was a lot of just me,
Mm-hmm.
posting. And again, there's tons of agencies out there. We're not the only ones. This is not a new thing whatsoever. But I mean, there's still very few people, very few agencies
Mm-hmm.
that are really doing this, and still very few
Yeah.
SaaS brands that are leading into this. I mean, we
Yeah.
could all think about the names. There's a short list of names that comes to mind. And then you think about all of the SaaS brands that are in a specific category, tons just don't even come up on the map ever. And so I think,
Yeah.
again, it can start very small. And, the excuse of CEOs or SMEs not having the time is kind of complete BS. I mean, the not having time thing is really more related to you don't want to prioritize it. I mean, it's as
That's it.
simple as literally just blocking out your calendar and saying, this hour, I'm going to do this thing. But I do think there's some hurdles that, some people have to overcome, which is, you've got imposter syndrome. You've
Yeah.
got, what do I say? How do I say it? Maybe I'm not a good writer. Of course, now AI can help a lot with that to at least
Mm-hmm.
get a draft to maybe 80% and have you then manipulate it after that to get it to 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of those things, just mental hurdles, are actually sometimes the more difficult things. Certainly they were for me. I mean, when I was starting out, I think it was like finding my voice, what I want to say, what I want to
That's it.
talk about.
Yeah.
OmniLab was still very new, and we didn't have like a POV, I think, on how we saw paid
Yeah.
media. And honestly, I was posting things like Einstein quotes and Random stuff is crazy. I mean, all stuff of like my daughter and Halloween. I don't know. It was very random.
Tend to
Backups.
do very well, actually. The one that
Yeah.
are more personal. It's funny, huh?
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
but
Anyway.
one thing that you just mentioned, finding your narrative, your unique point of view, I totally agree with you. It's tough to nail it. But it doesn't it go back to having a good understanding of your best fit account or at least your best fit audience? It goes back to this, whichever play you put in place organically on LinkedIn or any paid. I find many brands I've spoken to, you ask them, what is your ideal customer profile? Define that account, right? And they're going to give you revenue size and they're going to give you geos, the typical firmographics, but do they understand them very much like at even a layer under that, like the persona level? What's that individual pain point? What's the job to be done and all those things? You probably helped your client go through this exercise a lot. I remember we've done it actually at the time,
Yep.
uh, because it's not something that is automatic for brands to know their
Yep.
ICP inside and out. And anything else you do after that's a foundation, right? It's going to fail
Right.
if you don't have the foundation right. So is that something you go deep dive with your clients with?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying we're a messaging or positioning agency or anything like
No.
that, but I would say that we help organize messaging in a way that aligns with the buyer's journey and make
Yeah.
sure we create a better paid media strategy that hopefully aligns with the client's goals. And so I think for us right now, I mean, we've got a couple of tabs in an onboarding doc we use, and one of those tabs is a messaging tab, and it's
Mm,
basically built to support messaging by specific segments, which to your point, it could
mm,
be persona based, like finance versus IT, it could be industry based, manufacturing versus healthcare, or it could be size based, SMB versus mid market versus enterprise. And so I think the real thing in the beginning, depending on how mature you are with messaging and how much you can support in terms of the content and messaging needs around all those different segments, is to
mhm.
start really simple. I mean, sometimes it might be as simple as just like a general specific message to a very specific segment of your ICP, period. Easy. One segment, one message with a couple of variations. That's it. And that might be as far as you need to go in terms of just organizing messaging. Clearly,
Yeah.
as you get more mature, to your point about the jobs to be done framework, we'll usually outline it with the current way they do it, the way that they want to do it, the ideal way. So it's kind of the solution state, the
Yeah.
capability, the actual thing
Mm,
that the feature does, right? So by feature, so you got feature, current way, future way, capability, how it works, and any other details that, they want to add to that
yeah.
framework. And that way
Yeah.
you've got a feature by feature list of all the current ways they do it, of all the future ways they want to do it, of all the problems, the capabilities, so on and so forth. You've got that in a grid. And so then you can
Hmm.
start to develop messaging around those specific talking points. And you're not going to
True.
say everything all at once, but you're going to focus on specific things that the company obviously wants to promote. With
Right.
obviously being incredibly important with any early stage SaaS brand is, what do you do? And to be incredibly clear on that, because I think we all know that there's just a lot of AI driven enabled
Mm,
revenue making
crazy.
machine is like a headline on a website or an ad. And it's like, okay, that's great. That sounds impressive, but I
Hmm.
still have no clue what you do. And
Mm,
so I think getting really clear on the jobs to be done framework, or just getting specific with the language. I mean, a lot of AI
yeah.
platforms are in this really tough spot, I think, right now, to say one last thing and I'll let you chime in. But I think a lot of them are in tough spots because a lot of these AI platforms can do tons of stuff, tons of
Yeah.
use cases, tons of different solutions that could theoretically be created. And so I think what I think helps in a lot of scenarios is to get specific on specific solutions by an industry vertical, for example, and say, hey, here's what you can do. Here's a app you can make for healthcare to automate XYZ thing, right?
Mhm.
And so then they really understand, okay, cool. I didn't even think about that idea. Now I know that's something it can do. And then it gives them a starting point. And then from there, it's like, well, I wonder what else it can do versus just saying, hey, we're an AI platform that can create any app, anytime, anyway.
Seems too good to be true.
It's too vague and broad. And
Yeah.
so often you'll see lower engagement rates, lower
I
CTR, and all
agree.
sorts of things.
I agree. That's a very good point. I'd like to ask you a few rapid fire questions that
Yeah.
You don't know, of course, in advance. You ready?
Keep me on my toes. Let's do it.
Yes. Change the rhythm a little bit. So what was your very first job, and what did it teach you?
First job technically was a lawn mowing business that I
Mm,
started when I was a kid. So if we go way, way back when, I mowed about 40 lawns over the summer and had even kids from the neighborhood pitch in with their lawnmowers. And so we would go out
nice.
mowing lawns and edging sidewalks and all sorts of things, and made sure we are, of course, increasing our prices over the years and all sorts of things like that, which is always funny. As a kid, I think we started at like $12 a lawn and we were up to 60 some bucks a lawn after that. So we probably were underpricing ourselves. But at that time, we just were like, oh, this is fun. We get to make some money and all that. But yeah, I mean, what did I learn from it? I mean, I think the basics of running a business, right? I mean,
Yeah.
getting clients. I mean, ultimately it came from we were close with our neighbors. And so
Yeah.
my first client was my neighbor and they were out on
That's
vacation
it.
and I mowed their lawn one time. And then I said, what if I mowed your lawn every weekend? I mean, you don't really want
Yeah.
to mow your lawn. You don't have time for that. You got two kids, I'll mow your lawn.
Yeah.
And I was only 12 or 13 at the time, by the way. And so anyway, that
Good
kind
for
of
you.
sprawled. And then more neighbors heard that, I was mowing their lawn. They said, well, could you mow mine? And so on and so forth. And so it just kind of expanded out from that. But yeah, I guess you could say, sales and getting your first clients and
Yeah.
setting your
Customer
price.
service. Yeah.
Yeah. Doing maintenance on hardware, like, lawnmower
That's
and
it.
filling up with gas and oil and all the stuff that
Yeah.
it needed to have. So yeah.
That's very cool. Is there a podcast or a book that influences you the most, or that in terms of leadership style?
Leadership style, I'd have to think on that one on books. I will say Diary of the CEO is one of my
Mm,
new favorite
Stephen
podcasts with
Bartlett.
Stephen Bartlett. Yeah, he's great. I actually
He's
like
amazing.
him quite a bit more than what's his name? Chris over at Modern Wisdom runs
Mm,
also a very similar styled podcast, which is, very big celebrities, personalities, rich people. I mean, everyone in between, but very successful people. So I think there's a lot of stuff that he talks about. Clearly, leadership's probably in there at some level, but yeah, leadership books. There's one by Joko Willink, ex-Navy SEAL, that I'm forgetting the name of. I want to say it's called Extreme Ownership, actually. That is one worth reading. I would add that to your list. I haven't read it in a while, but it is a leadership book on taking accountability and
mm.
leading teams from the perspective of someone who did that as a Navy SEAL leader.
Like if your life would depend on it, sort of. I love it.
Yeah, totally.
Ownership is such a topic we could go on. It's crazy. So if you were not running a paid media agency, sorry, I put you in the paid media agency bucket. I'm not sure how you describe your agency. Is that proper? Okay. What career would you pursue if you were not doing what you do right now?
There's two things that one, I've always been interested in construction. I don't know if this would pay the salary I'd want, but driving heavy machinery like dump trucks and excavators and things like that, I've always had a interest in construction in general.
Very
I don't know
nice.
if I kind of think it'd be fun to be the builder for a while
Yeah.
because I think that's kind of the fun part. And then maybe at some point you rise up. The other thing too, that's an interesting business right now that I know nothing about, but I think is a good long-term investment as a business is HVAC and plumbing businesses, which
Yes.
sounds not so sexy, but it's probably one of the more immune businesses from a service
That's
perspective
right.
right now from AI. I mean, not to say that AI can't be ingested into those companies and improved, but
Mhm.
I think it's going to be a little while longer till we see androids walking into houses under your sink than we will see AI agents
Yeah.
optimizing your Google Ads account.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Not according to Elon Musk, actually. He believes that the planet will have more robots within the next 10 years than humans.
to
I
see
heard
that, I love.
saying
He's
that
always
recently.
ambitious with his thoughts, but
Yeah.
I
The,
think it's going to be a
the
mental. I think it's honestly the making of the robots and the advancement of the robots. I think will, in a way, be the easier part. I think the harder part will be getting humans to accept them into
oh
society,
my
into their
God,
homes, and getting comfortable being around robots. I think actually that will be the harder part. But
for sure. But boring businesses, I am with you actually on the first podcast. I spoke about that with my guests. They are, because I put them in the boring businesses
yeah,
type of bucket. They
totally.
won't
Yeah,
get
boring
replaced by
business is
AI,
good.
right? Tomorrow morning. I heard something about plumbers in US or electricians, I can't remember. There's a gap, there's a need for 500,000
Mm,
plumbers in US. So
Yeah.
it's a guaranteed career. If you ever want to take a couple of year off and go do your plumbing licenses,
Well, I
you
don't
can
know
have
if I'd
like,
want to be clear, I'm not sure I'd want to, in that sense, I'm not sure I'd want to be the plumber, although
yeah,
I'd
you
rather
want to
be
run the
the,
business.
yeah, I'd rather run that business because that would take time and plumbers have lots of skill sets to your point. I mean, that's a skill for sure. It's a good trade. So is HVAC too. That'd be a whole nother
So true.
thing. So yeah. Yeah.
Quick one. What's your favorite non-work hobby or passion project?
Hobby would be tennis.
Tennis.
Tennis is
I didn't
probably
know
what I
you
do
were a
most
tennis player. I'm
outside
a
of,
big tennis player too.
yeah,
I
tennis is
play 4 or
great.
5 times a week. I love it.
Do you? Oh, I'd love to get up to that much. With the kid situation, I don't have quite that much
Well, I
time
play
either.
with
'Cause,
my son actually. That's why.
well, so yeah, and your kid, I forget how old your son's.
12.
Yeah, so
12.
your son's a little bit older. So I've got,
Yeah.
1 and 4. So
Yeah.
the
Not
attention
quite.
span of going to hit the ball isn't quite there yet. But yeah, once it gets there, 100%, that'll be really fun. And we'll go play tennis all the time.
So I'll have to make it to your hometown
Yeah, you
to play
should. You
tennis at
should.
some point. We haven't met in person. This is so weird.
Is it
You
wild?
guys were in Toronto recently. We haven't had the chance to meet up. I was on vacation when you guys were
I
there. I would
know.
have
I
made the
know.
trip.
I bet you if we ever did meet up though, it would feel as if we had been hanging out, honestly. I know this is a weird
Agree.
thing where I have met some people after just knowing them for a very long time virtually. And
Yeah.
I meet them and it's just like, it's kind of like we're just picking up where we left off. It doesn't feel really that odd at all. It's like,
So
oh,
true.
cool. There you are.
Yeah.
So
That's how I imagine. Other than the height, we never know with height, right?
that's
You never
true. That's
know.
true. I could be short. I could be really tall.
Exactly. We don't know that. Don't tell me.
Yeah.
So I'll end this here with the rapid fire question. Thank you. This is good. Get to know you at a different level. I want to end maybe with something around where you think AI is going in regards to paid media. Where do you see it having the most impact over the next few years? I know right now it's much more manual than real-time optimization with AI injected. I haven't seen the tool yet, that will take everything and sort of be your intelligence system, although I know a few that are coming out. But where do
Yeah.
you think we'll see the most progress in regards to AI applicable to paid media?
Well, I think the areas we're already seeing a ton of advancement in are ad creative and ad copy. I think are probably the biggest use cases already. And I think that's a big deliverable for lots of agencies and in-house marketing teams. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, especially copy. I mean, of course, Google Ads for a while has allowed you to create PMAX campaigns and demand gen campaigns and other things like that, where it can help write the copy right within the channel itself. Now, of course, with LLMs, you've got another tool that you can leverage to, write copy at scale to take into consideration tone of voice and various brand guidelines and all sorts of things. ChatGPT, interestingly, I took a ad from LinkedIn itself, LinkedIn corporate,
Hmm.
and I loaded it into ChatGPT and I told it to change some elements. And it did exactly that. And I got another variation within about 20 seconds. No
Crazy.
graphic designer, no copywriter, no nothing.
That's
And
crazy.
so I think that is probably, for folks in that world, which I guess we are to a degree, although we leverage a lot of AI to do some of that now, clearly,
Hmm.
as most agencies should be doing.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing is really going to be, a lot of the button pushing that happens today, like bid adjustments and, media planning and budget reallocations and things of that nature. I mean, to a degree, they're already have been automated for years through bidding strategies, but I think that there's going to be a lot more automation there. And I think we're going to let go little by little, as long as we feel like we've got the reporting to know what's working and what's not. I think sometimes, certainly I fear, and I think anyone that's managing their paid budget, when you give over the controls to Google and you let the black box do what the black box does, at one level, if the results are there, then maybe everyone's happy. But I think when the results aren't there, it makes it very hard to figure out what's actually going on. And so I think
Yeah.
that humans will always want to have some level of control for at least a while. There's definitely going to be a point, clearly, and Sam Altman said this about OpenAI, that he's going to be replaced by an AI chatbot at some point, maybe over the next, decade or so. And no one's going to run OpenAI. He's just going to be gone and getting paid probably a lot of money to do nothing. But I think we're still a little bit further away from that. I could be very wrong, but anyway, I think those are the big things that I think are going to happen. So a lot of the button
Yeah.
pushing and things that we do on a regular basis. I mean, a lot of that stuff is already getting automated to a degree and can be automated through recommendations. And so, but you're still going to need someone that has, you know, the customer in mind, what we want to say, what we want to do, someone to
Yeah.
make decisions. And so I think it's going to just be a lot less deliverables and button pushing. And
Yeah.
that's just going to continue to decrease. And we're going to see a lot more emphasis on strategy, knowing the customer, and making decisions based off of AI recommendations. And I think
Right.
humans, are still going to have a part to play for at least a while, maybe
Oh,
not
yeah.
forever, certainly not forever, but for a while, on that regard related to paid. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I
Agree
guess that's
more.
far.
This is a really good point that we'll go back to putting the human into a seat where they add the most value, right? Because, like you said, doing manual optimization, this is the kind of stuff that AI does very well, but strategy, creative thinking is where we belong as human, right? In the engine.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, man, thank you so much. That was a really good session. I hope we can do that again, maybe with Jason at some point. That'll be
Yeah,
fun to
100%. We
do
should all get
like a,
together. Yeah, that'd be
yeah,
good.
that'll be great.
Yeah.
But thank you
Yeah.
again for your time. I appreciate it.
Our big guy. Well, cool. We'll chat here later.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.